Hi, I'm Weldon. I'm 78 years old, and I used to believe that love, especially a father's love, was enough to earn you a seat at your own son's wedding. But last week, I found my name listed not among the guests, not even among the forgotten, but as a contributor, not attending. They edited me out of the slideshow, returned my gift unopened, blocked my flowers at the gate, and introduced another man as the father in front of everyone. But here's the thing. When a family decides you no longer fit the narrative, what do? Walk away? Or rewrite the story they tried to erase you from? My hands trembled as I held the message from Tobin. Just a quick text. Hey, just a heads up, we've decided to streamline the rehearsal. Hope you understand. I'd been staring at it for what felt like 10 minutes, not shocked, just quietly undone. I set the phone on the kitchen table, where the morning sun painted long stripes across the hardwood. Exactly 1 week before the wedding, 1 week that should have been my time, walking my boy through every detail. Now, I wasn't sure I had a place at all. I moved to the living room window and watched the neighbor's cat hop over the fence. The little creature didn't worry about being included. I envied that freedom. I took a slow breath and tried to steady myself. This wasn't how I thought things would go after raising Tobin alone since Laverne passed. I'd polished these dress shoes countless times, waiting for the moment I'd walk him to the altar. Now they sat in the closet, untouched. A memory floated in. The last call with Tobin, a month back. His voice distracted, all about RSVPs and vendors. He'd ended the call quickly, promising he'd call again. He never did. Dusk moved across the room and I gathered the invitation envelope still on the counter. I pulled it closer and remembered when I opened it, my name printed neatly, underlined. I'd shown it off to my neighbor's wife. My firstborn's getting married, I said, heart pounding with pride. I slid the invitation back into its envelope. Pride turned cold. I set it on the mantel beside photographs, graduations, birthdays, trips, a lifetime of beaming smiles. But now, something felt hollow. That night I imagined the rehearsal scene, the tables, the lights, faces I'd known since Tobin's childhood. But there'd be no father-son moment with me. The streamlining meant losing my invitation, and them losing me. I couldn't let this stand. My pride and grief tangled, healing and fighting both rising inside me. I finished my coffee cold, setting the empty mug in the sink. I retrieved the dress shoes and gently polished them again, as if I could restore hope through careful attention. Outside, crickets began their evening song. I stepped onto the porch, shoes in hand, and let the twilight settle around me. Neighbors passed by, waving. I nodded. Looking forward to it, I murmured, voice tight but steady. They assumed I meant the rehearsal dinner. I held my tongue. The next ping of my phone jolted me. My heart jumped, but it was only a reminder. Rehearsal venue confirmed. Not a word about me. A single tear slid down my cheek. But I didn't wipe it, not yet. I wanted to remember this ache. So tomorrow, I'd know what to do. I stared at the phone long after the message disappeared. My hand hovered over the screen, but I didn't reply. There was nothing else to say. I slipped it into my pocket and stepped outside, hoping the cool air would make things feel less heavy. It didn't. That morning, I opened my email and spotted something odd, a group thread from the wedding planner. I shouldn't have been included, but there it was. Preview slideshow attached, final version to be shown at rehearsal dinner. My thumb hesitated before clicking. The file loaded slowly, as if warning me to walk away. The first photo faded in, Tobin on a tricycle, alone, no one behind him. Though I remembered clearly holding the seat steady that day. Another shot, his 5th birthday. Cake in front, candles lit, but no hand on his shoulder, no father in the frame. A third, of him learning to ride without training wheels. The image I'd taken with my old camera, me running beside him in the park, shouting encouragement. In this version, it was just him in the sidewalk. I watched it through once. Then again, the transitions were smooth, the music gentle. Someone had spent time making it feel warm, but to me, it felt cold, sanitized. I wasn't missing by accident. I'd been edited out, late afternoon. I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. A young woman cleared her throat and asked, "Is this Mr. Maynor?" "Yes," I said. I, uh, I work at Sugarfern Bakery. You had a custom cake order for Tobin and Marla? I sat up straighter. Yes. Has something happened? She hesitated, then dropped her voice. The order's been declined for delivery. The planner said it doesn't match the aesthetic. I stayed quiet. She went on. I thought you should know. I saw the cake. It's beautiful. I'm sorry. It wasn't her fault. I thanked her, hung up, and grabbed my car keys. The drive to Sugarfern took 20 minutes. The bakery owner, Sam, met me at the counter. He didn't smile like usual, just pointed toward a side fridge. It's still here. We were hoping you'd come. I followed him back. The cake sat under a glass dome, untouched. White frosting, a thin blue ribbon at the base, and two small wooden birds on top, one larger, one smaller. I'd carved them myself and brought them in weeks ago, father and son, standing side by side. I stood there for a long while. Sam offered to refund me. No, I said. Let it be. He asked if I wanted to take it home. I didn't answer, just walked out. That evening, Drexel Vaughn called. His voice was polished, rehearsed. Mr. Maynor, I wanted to reach out directly. We appreciate your intentions. Truly. However, the wedding has a modern rustic curation. Your gesture, while thoughtful, might confuse the thematic flow. Confuse the flow. I murmured that I understood, though I didn't. After hanging up, I went to the hallway. The lights were dim. Along the wall hung years of family photos. I passed them slowly, stopping at one near the middle, me holding Tobin, only a few months old. He'd fallen asleep against my chest. Laverne had taken it, her handwriting on the back. 2 hearts, same beat. I took the frame down, walked it to the kitchen, and set it on the counter. The house was quiet. I stood there a while, then slowly turned the photo face down. In the silence, I thought of that cake, how I'd imagined them cutting it, guests laughing, a moment of inclusion, simple but real. Now, it was nothing but a box in a fridge, and a phone call no one wanted to make. Later that night, while reaching for a folder, I knocked over a stack of old papers. Among them, a notebook slid out. The corner was frayed, and across the front, in fading ink, Tobin, Milestones Expenses. I picked it up, thumbed through the first few pages. Diapers, $47.32. Booster seat, $89.99. School trip lunch fund, $2,500. Page after page of notes I'd made over decades. Every purchase, every sacrifice, every quiet investment into a life I thought would never forget me. I didn't intend to read every page that night, but the ink knew too much to ignore. Once I saw that old notebook, Tobin, Milestones Expenses, lying there beside my foot. I bent to pick it up like it was a piece of broken glass from a frame I didn't know had fallen. My knees cracked with the motion, and I chuckled, not because it was funny, but because everything in this house seemed to echo. I sat at the desk I hadn't used since Laverne passed. The bulb overhead flickered once before holding steady. I opened the cover. The first entry was dated May 14th, 1979. Tobin's birth certificate copy cost me $6. A scribbled line beneath it. He has her eyes. Flip. The next few pages were uneven rows of expenses, hospital copay, pediatric appointments, formula brands I'd forgotten existed. I saw receipts from Toys R Us taped between pages. I remembered walking those aisles, trying to act like I knew what a teething ring looked like. Flip. Kindergarten backpack, $28.99, notes in the margin. Blue with racing stripes, he cried when it broke. Then came the dental work, then Little League uniforms, violin rentals, and that one-time field trip to D.C. that cost me 2 overtime shifts and half my patience with the boss. Each line wasn't just money, it was memory. There were evenings I came home covered in grease, the sun long gone, only to find Tobin asleep in the recliner with his shoes still on, waiting for me. I never woke him, just covered him with a blanket and sat on the floor next to him, watching his chest rise and fall, like I was watching proof that I was doing something right. I didn't complain. Not back then. I was proud. I turned another page and found an envelope tucked inside. It was from a wedding expo 3 months ago. Inside it, folded with precision, was a napkin I'd taken from the tasting booth. I'd sketched out the rehearsal dinner table, the layout I envisioned when I still thought I'd have a seat. My seat was beside Tobin. I'd even drawn a little star next to it and written, "Toast from Dad." I traced my finger along the ink line. That sketch meant something when I drew it. It was a place I believed I belonged. Now, it was fiction. I folded the napkin gently and placed it on the desk. Across from it, the ledger still lay open. I stared at both, past and dream, side by side. One recorded what I gave, the other, what I hoped to receive. It wasn't about cake or seating charts. It wasn't about speeches or themed colors. It was about being seen. I hadn't built wealth. I built moments. I built memory. And now, even memory had been redesigned, reformatted, retold without the builder. I reached for the ledger. The thought flashed through me. Burn it. Let the proof disappear with the silence. But my hand wouldn't move. Some truths aren't meant to vanish quietly. Instead, I rose and walked to the side table where I'd placed the envelope for the wedding gift. I slid the napkin sketch into it, beside the gift card I'd written 3 weeks ago, the one no one asked for. Then I returned to the photo I had turned face down the night before. It was still there, right where I'd left it, the glass cool to the touch. I lifted it. My younger self stared back, tired but smiling, a baby asleep in his arms. I repositioned it upright. This time, I didn't turn it away. That's when I heard it, a soft ping from my phone on the kitchen counter. I walked over, slow and steady, and tapped the screen. An email from the family's financial advisor. Subject line, follow-up, updated trustee terms. The email was brief, clinical, and as cold as a lawyer's handshake. I read it 3 times before my eyes stopped skipping over the words that mattered. Per the updated trustee terms, dated May 5th, funds for the wedding have been dispersed in accordance with the revised provisions. It continued in that tone, precise, impersonal, and devastating. I sat at the kitchen table, coffee cooling in front of me. Bryson Kellerman, the estate attorney I'd once invited to Thanksgiving dinner, had sent the message. There was no greeting, no "Mr. Maynor, hope you're doing well," just a bullet-pointed list of facts. No mention of needing my approval, no signature from me, just an updated file, filed without me. I set the mug down and rubbed the crease between my eyebrows. The kitchen felt like it had shrunk overnight. Cabinets, the same color Laverne had picked decades ago, now felt too tight. The fridge hummed like it was thinking harder than I was. A few minutes passed before I stood and walked down the hallway to the study. I opened the cabinet where we kept everything that mattered once: birth certificates, medical forms, holiday cards from people we hadn't heard from in years. There it was, tucked beneath a folder labeled "Mortgage Paid" in Laverne's handwriting. The original trustee agreement. The paper had yellowed some, but my signature was bold, firm, 10 years ago. Clause 7. Section B. Expenditure of trust funds for events or life milestones requires express written approval of surviving spouse. I read it aloud, then again, slower. "And who am I now?" I said, barely above a whisper. "If not that?" I sat back in the old wooden chair that creaked like it remembered things I'd forgotten. My thumb ran over the page's edge. That clause wasn't ambiguous. It wasn't optional. It was just ignored. By mid-morning, I called Tobin, straight to voicemail. "Hey, son. It's Dad." I kept my voice even. "I saw the new terms. Just wanted to ask why this change didn't need my voice." I didn't say I was hurt. I didn't plead. I didn't threaten. I hung up, then stared at the wall as if it might offer a reason. There was no return call. The printer on my desk sputtered to life as I fed the document through and printed a clean copy. I slipped it into a brown envelope and wrote his name across the front. Then I paused, pulled out a sticky note, and scrawled, "Did you forget this part? Or just hope I did?" I didn't send it. Instead, I walked over to the bookshelf and slid the envelope beneath a thick volume titled Family Matters. Laverne bought it during one of her genealogy phases. It had sat untouched for years, the kind of book meant to look respectable more than be read. Now, it held something that needed hiding more than showcasing. The house was quiet, just like it had been all week. I made myself a sandwich I didn't finish and left the plate in the sink. That afternoon, I went to the desk drawer where I'd kept the wedding gift, still wrapped, still untouched. I lifted the lid and added the copy of the trust, folded neatly beside the gift card. I closed it gently, as if doing so could keep the contents from spoiling. The tag on the box stared back at me. For Tobin, may this be a bridge, not a boundary. I stood there a long while, hand resting on the box, before I turned and walked to the window. Outside, the neighbor's kid was learning to skateboard. He fell once, got up, fell again. His father clapped from the porch. That night, I dreamt of Laverne. We were back in our first apartment, mismatched furniture, a leaking faucet we never fixed. She stood at the table, pen in hand, calculating something. You always thought love meant paperwork, she said, smiling. Maybe it does. I woke before dawn, heart steady but tired. When I checked my phone, there was a new email. Forwarded from Drexel Vaughn. Subject, RSVP. Update. I opened it slowly. Next to my name, contributor, not attending. I never thought two words, not attending, could sting worse than outright rejection. But there they were, bold on a forwarded RSVP list, sent from someone who didn't even mean to include me. I stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then I shut the laptop and walked out onto the porch, hoping the morning air might do something the coffee hadn't. That's when I saw it, sitting right there, beside the doormat, like a package that had lost its way. The wedding gift box. The wrapping paper still smooth, ribbons still tied, but now it carried a yellow delivery tag slapped across the top. Undeliverable. Return to sender. No card, no explanation. Just the quiet finality of something handed back without a word. I carried it inside with both hands, careful like it might fall apart. On the kitchen table, I untied the ribbon slowly, expecting, a scribbled note, an apology, a, hey, sorry, we didn't know what to do with this. But there was nothing. The gift envelope, the one that had held a copy of the original trust terms, was missing. I flipped the box over, checked the edges, looked under the tissue paper. Gone. It didn't take long to call the shipping service. I waited through the usual hold music until a woman with a practiced tone answered. Yes, I said. Tracking number 3841. Yes, that one. I just received it back. She paused. Return requested by client, sir. It wasn't an address error. Client as in the recipient? Yes, sir. The return was requested on file. I hung up. Not rudely, just softly. There wasn't anger, not the loud kind, just a dry hum beneath my ribs. I walked the box down the hallway and opened the closet across from the laundry room. Inside were spare linens, a few of Laverne's sewing things I hadn't moved. I placed the box carefully on the middle shelf. Then I went back to the kitchen, pulled out my journal, and wrote, Gift unreceived becomes evidence. Not a gesture. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed, a text from a distant cousin I hadn't seen since Laverne's funeral. Watching the rehearsal dinner livestream. Beautiful, so far. Livestream. I hadn't known there was a livestream. I opened my tablet and searched the venue's website. There it was. Watch now, Tobin Marla's rehearsal celebration. The screen lit up. A string quartet played softly in the background. White linen tables under hanging lights. People raising glasses. Laughter. I couldn't hear but could imagine. I watched in silence. Then came the speeches. First, Marla's maid of honor, glowing praise about love and shared futures. Then her father, retelling stories with a voice full of practiced nostalgia. Finally, Tobin stepped forward. I leaned closer. He thanked everyone, mentioned those who made this day possible, and our families, present and past. But my name didn't make it in. One guest raised a glass. To all the supportive parents here tonight. The camera panned wide. I saw Tobin nod toward Marla's mother. I closed the tablet without a sound and set it face down beside me. My hand rested there for a moment. Then I whispered, "I'm still here." The silence around me didn't argue. It didn't comfort either. I stood, stretched the stiffness from my back, and walked to the sink. Rinsed out the half-drunk coffee, washed the cup slowly, then dried it. Just as I turned to head toward the living room, my phone buzzed again. This time, an automated message from the florist. "Hello, Mr. Maynor. Your scheduled flower arrangement for the reception area has been canceled, per client instruction. If this was an error, please contact us within 24 hours. I stared at the message. I didn't respond. I set the phone down and looked out the window. It wasn't raining, but it might as well have been. It took 3 phone calls to confirm. The bouquet never even made it past the gate. The florist had been kind, overly kind, the way someone is when they know they're delivering a slap with a smile. "I'm so sorry, Mr. Maynor," she said. "The estate declined delivery, said it was unscheduled and didn't align with their design protocol. I just wanted you to know it wasn't us. We tried." I thanked her, genuinely. Then hung up, scrolled back through the original order confirmation, and deleted it with one quiet tap. Outside, the clouds were low and mean, the kind that hover instead of moving, like they're waiting to see if you'll flinch. I sat back in my chair and pulled my phone again. The email from the wedding planner, Drexel, still sat unread at the top of my inbox. I opened it. Forwarded by mistake. Subject line, Final RSVP Contributor Index. Underneath the list of confirmed guests, a new category stood out in bold. Contributors not attending. There I was, listed below the caterer, beneath the lighting sponsor. Weldon Maynor, Floral's initial legacy support. That was it. Not father, not guest, not even family. Just a line item. I didn't throw the phone. I didn't even swear. I just sat there, running my finger along the edge of the table until the skin began to burn. By afternoon, I was in my truck, driving without much direction until I found myself just outside the wedding estate. I didn't pull into the drive. I stayed parked across the road, partially shielded by a row of cypress trees. The staff were busy, wheeling carts and unloading boxes. White monogrammed items, napkins, menus, even small wooden signs were stacked high. Through the binoculars I kept in the glove box for birdwatching. I noticed a napkin flutter in the breeze before someone pinned it down. It wasn't just any napkin. I knew the pattern. Tiny diamonds stitched in gray and green, an old design I made myself, by hand, for Tobin's 10th birthday party, a forest theme. Laverne and I stayed up 2 nights ironing each one, and now it was here, reused, repurposed, with someone else's initials printed over it in gold, M+T. I drove off before I could decide if that was worse than forgetting entirely. Back in town, I pulled up to the cafe on Ashland where Jerica Alden worked. She was already on break, leaning against the back wall with her apron still on. Jerica used to be my assistant, sharp mind, patient hands. She didn't speak at first, just walked over and handed me something folded. "I found it in the discard bin outside the estate," she said. "Didn't feel right leaving it." I unfolded it slowly. T+D, in Dad's hands forever. The thread was mine, the handwriting, mine. A personal stitch I'd once sewn with pride, now smudged with what looked like red wine and streaked along the fold. "Thanks," I said, not meeting her eyes. "Weldon," she began, then stopped. She didn't need to finish. There wasn't anything left to say. That night, back home, I sat on the porch, the smudged napkin on my lap, the bouquet, still bundled in florist wrap, leaning beside my chair. The smell was soft now, less floral, more apology. I opened my journal, flipped past the pages I used to fill with numbers, reminders, gift ideas. And on a fresh line, I wrote, "They needed my silence more than they ever needed my seat." It was true, and saying it out loud, even in ink, didn't feel like surrender. It felt like clarity. Just as I was about to close the notebook, Another email landed. It was a system forward, the kind you only receive because someone forgot to remove your address from an internal chain. Subject: On-site restrictions. Final check. From Drexel Vaughn, Planner-in-Chief. Ensure Mr. Maynor is not granted access on-site at any point during the event window. Confirm with all gate staff. Signed, time-stamped. There it was. Permission to erase, delivered digitally and with impeccable grammar. The call came just as I was wiping down the kitchen counter. Like most mornings. Nothing fancy, just my routine. The voice on the line was polite, almost embarrassed. Mr. Maynor, this is Leah from the Spindlewood Inn. I'm afraid I have to inform you that your reservation for this weekend has been cancelled. The event coordinator, well, they've reassigned the room. I didn't say anything at first. I'm sorry, sir, she added. The note said, he won't be needing it. I hung up. The click of the phone echoed in the empty kitchen. I didn't move for a long while. Just stood there, sponge still damp in my hand, the faint smell of lemon cleaner hanging in the air. Later that day, I opened my inbox and found another email, another one never meant for my eyes. It was from Drexel, forwarded accidentally, the way some wounds aren't delivered intentionally, but land just the same. Reminder to all vendors, no unscheduled entries allowed. Mr. Maynor is not to be given access under any circumstance. It read like a policy memo. Efficient. Cold. Final. I read it twice. Then I closed the laptop. Not in anger. There wasn't any left to spend. Just a hollow quiet. The kind you get right before a thunderstorm breaks loose. But the clouds still hold back. Around 5. I took a walk. Ended up at the cafe near the estate. One of those places that sells herbal teas with names like Calm or Confidence. I ordered plain black. That's when I saw her. Marla. Sitting near the window. Her mother, Corliss, beside her, prim in cream linen and pearls. They weren't laughing, just talking, low and tense. I wouldn't have even noticed them if Marla's glance hadn't flicked up, just for a second, and landed right on me. Her eyes widened. I saw her hand twitch upward, as if to wave. But Corliss reached over, placed her hand over Marla's, and pressed it back to the table. And just like that, the moment broke. I didn't approach. I didn't nod. I took my tea to go and walked out without looking back. Back home. I set the cup on the windowsill and watched it steam, then watched the steam fade. I kept seeing Marla's face. The way her expression cracked just before she was pulled back into whatever script had been written for her. She saw me, and she was ashamed that I'd seen her too. I opened my journal. It's not the gate that shut me out, I wrote. It's the silence she didn't break. When the sun dipped behind the tree line, I went to the hallway closet, pulled out the wedding gift box, the one I'd sealed twice, unsealed once. I reopened it gently, as if afraid something inside had changed shape. I reread the estate memo, printed and folded now like a last will. I laid it next to the wine-stained napkin Jerica had salvaged. Both fit too easily in the box's base. I sealed the lid one more time, not to ship, not to deliver, just to preserve, to say, this happened. This was real, and maybe one day, someone would open it and read not just what I'd given, but what I wasn't allowed to say. I looked at the box a moment longer, then whispered aloud to no one. She looked away, but not before knowing I looked back. The words sat in the air like breath on glass. The next morning, just as I stepped outside to water the porch plants, a young woman in a florist apron jogged up the path, winded and flustered. "Mr. Maynor?" she said. "Sorry, I was told to bring this back to you. They wouldn't take it. Said it wasn't on their list." She held out a small envelope, my handwriting on the front, but I didn't remember giving it to her. I took it in both hands, the paper warm from hers. The email popped up like an old wound reopened. Wedding live stream now starting, courtesy of Silver Fern Events. I stared at the notification, index finger hovering above the mouse. I shouldn't have clicked, but I did. The video loaded in silence. My den stayed dim. Curtains drawn. Ceiling fan rotating slowly. The stream opened with wide, sweeping shots of the reception hall, White linens, soft candlelight, the hum of string instruments somewhere in the background. Then the first blow landed. The slideshow began. Childhood moments looped across a massive screen above the dance floor. The bike Tobin first rode, the science fair where he clutched a ribbon, Christmas mornings, only. Something was missing. Someone. Me. Photos I had taken, stood in, lived through, cropped, in one clip. I remembered the sound of my own laughter behind the camera, filming Tobin tumbling into autumn leaves. But in this version, the video was tinted in amber with a tag at the bottom. Courtesy of Corliss Donnell's Family Archives. As if I'd never held the camera, as if I'd never been there at all. I adjusted the volume and tried to focus. A few speeches began. Faces I vaguely recognized stepped to the mic, sharing warm words, laughter, even a tear or two. I waited. Then the MC's voice boomed. And now, a very special tribute. The camera zoomed in on Tobin and Marla at their table. Tobin stood, glass in hand, and said, "There's someone I want to acknowledge tonight. Someone who's been a guide, a mentor, and a second father to me, Charles. I don't think I'd be standing here without your support." The video transitioned to photos. Charles and Tobin at high school baseball games, helping with college applications, even standing beside Tobin at his first job interview. "To Charles," Tobin said, raising his glass, "the man who stepped in when it mattered most." Applause rang out. I didn't blink. I muted the stream, turned the screen away, not out of anger, but to spare myself the echo of it. I walked slowly to the hallway, opened the gift box for what felt like the 100th time. Inside, the napkin, the memo, the trust document. I found a small sticky note and scribbled, "You had one father. You still do. You just chose to rename the title." I pressed the note on top of the contents, closed the lid again. Outside. The sky had started to dim. I moved out to the garden and sat on the bench Laverne and I built together years ago, now softened by moss and years of quiet. From the yard next door, the neighbors' children ran with sparklers, their laughter slicing through the night. A few of the sparks drifted high, faded, and vanished against the darkening blue. I whispered into the hush, "This, too, will pass, but not tonight." Back inside, I started locking up the house. Just as I turned the deadbolt, I heard the faint rustle of something sliding beneath the front door. A manila envelope. No name. No return address. Just a sticker in the corner. Wedding Archives. Private. I picked it up gently. Hands steady now. Morning light seeped through the curtains just as I heard the soft scrape of an object sliding beneath the front door. My heart constricted, remembering the manila envelope from last night. I shuffled to the door, retrieved it, and held the familiar sticker. Wedding Archives. Private. My palms trembled slightly, as if expecting one final blow. I carried the envelope into the kitchen, unfolded it with measured caution. Inside lay a single sheet, margins worn, just Marla's handwriting. I recognized the letters immediately, as though I had heard her voice speaking them. "I didn't know. I saw you. I didn't speak. I should have." At the bottom, there was a smear of dried mascara, an intimate confession left behind like a silent plea. I didn't know what to feel. Guilt? Regret? Relief that she noticed me, even if she couldn't say it then. I sat at the table, the note resting in my lap, and revisited each word as though decoding a hidden message. My silence hung heavy until I finally stood and fetched my own notebook, one I titled, "Things Unsaid." I turned its pages, recalling passages written over years, thoughts never voiced aloud for fear of stirring more turmoil. I found a page marked "For her," if she ever asks. My pen hovered above the blank envelope on the counter. I began writing, not a rebuttal, not an accusation, but a simple truth. "Marla, I saw you too. I felt your eyes. Then the turn, the shame. I held my tongue for the same reason you did. We were both silenced in that moment. Know this, I am still here, ready to speak when you are. My handwriting shivered slightly as I finished. I didn't seal the envelope. Instead, I placed it beside the front door, plain, unaddressed, no pressure. If she wants it, she'll know where to find it, I murmured to myself. The house felt larger afterward, quieter somehow. I moved toward the porch, clutching Marla's returned letter in one hand and my notebook in the other. The morning sun warmed my face as I stepped outside. I settled into the wicker chair, folding the letter carefully and pressing it gently to my chest, notebook against my heart. Then I felt a single tear trail down my cheek, a drop not of sorrow, but of release. This was more than grief. It was a step toward something unknown, fragile, and perhaps hopeful. My phone buzzed, startling me. A message from the catering manager flashed. "We found this in the bridal suite. Looks personal." Attached was a photo, a small necklace box, the lid open, with a handwritten note resting inside. I stared without comprehension. I hadn't remembered sending a necklace. Laverne and I had picked it out years ago, a simple silver chain with a modest locket. I knew then what it would mean to her, a token connecting past to future. But what had happened to it? Had someone returned it? Or stolen it? And why had it ended up in the bridal suite? A low wind rustled through the porch. I pressed the silent items to my chest again and closed my eyes. The photo caught me off guard, not the image itself, but what it didn't show. There it was, nestled in the corner of the bridal suite, the small blue velvet box I'd packed with quiet hands. The catering manager's text was brief. Found this during cleanup. Below it, the photo, unopened, forgotten, tucked beneath a pile of printed menus and a glittery centerpiece sign that read, "Forever starts today." I stared at the screen, long enough for the display to dim and go dark. I didn't touch it for another hour. When I did, I tapped a single reply. "Thank you. Keep it, or discard it. It's no longer mine." And I meant it. At least, in that moment, I did. It had taken me weeks to plan that gift. I remembered the day I stood in the old jewelry shop, Laverne's ring in my palm. The jeweler, an older man himself, watched quietly as I explained what I wanted. "Melt it down," I said. "Keep the gold simple, no stones, just a chain, and a charm, something she can wear. Or not. It's not about show." He nodded, asked what engraving I wanted. I told him, and he paused before nodding again. "Always. Dad," I'd said, when the necklace was finished. I placed it in that velvet box. No wrapping paper, no big bow, just a small white card inside that read, "Love is presence without condition, loyalty without stage." I had planned to hand it to her the morning of the wedding. A quiet moment between us. A bridge, I'd told myself. A way of saying, "I see you, I welcome you." Instead, it ended up under a pile of reception menus. Later that afternoon, I found myself back in front of the computer. An old file folder labeled Tobin Wedding Planning, Early Drafts. I hadn't looked at it in weeks, maybe months. The first document was a spreadsheet, guest list, timeline, notes. My name was there, under Family, Speech Giver. Even had a little asterisk beside it. Opening toast, light and heartfelt. That version was dated 8 months ago. I opened the next file. Final guest list. No asterisks, no speech notes. My name wasn't even under immediate family, just gone. I printed both, clipped them together, sat staring at the contrast. That evening, I placed the documents into an envelope, added a new note in my own handwriting. History isn't made by those who are loudest, but by those who choose to remember. I sealed the envelope and stored it inside the old safe behind my bookshelf, not because I wanted to protect it, but because I wasn't ready to throw it away. The sun was lowering by then. I took my tea out to the garden, an old journal in hand, the same one I'd started a year after Laverne passed. Its spine was soft now. Pages worn from thumbprints and quiet thoughts. On the final page, I wrote, "I was erased, but I did not disappear." I looked up as the breeze moved through the trees. It was gentle, as if nothing in the world had gone wrong. I didn't smile out of joy, but something settled in my chest, a calmness I hadn't felt in days. I didn't need to fix anything anymore, especially not for people who chose to forget. I stood to go back inside when my phone buzzed against the armrest. A voice message from Tobin. Dad, I don't know where to start, but I know I need to. The early morning light fell soft across the kitchen table where my phone lay. Tobin's voicemail played again. First, silence, long enough for my pulse to slow. Then, his voice, unsteady. Dad, I know it's late, but I think I messed up. I don't want to lose you. I just didn't know how to include you without feeling small. He paused again. I heard him swallow. The faint rustle of his breathing in the recording made each word heavier. I held the phone in both hands and let those silences settle. I didn't answer. Not yet. I moved softly to my writing desk and pulled a clean sheet of paper. No bitterness, no blame, just honesty. Dear Tobin, I began. I wrote about love without theatrics, regrets without accusations. I told him I heard the fear in his voice and understood. Then I added a second parcel, a copy of the trust document he'd changed, with a sticky note. This wasn't about control. It was about belonging. I folded both carefully and placed them on the hall table. Shortest path between us. Later that afternoon, my phone buzzed. A text from Marla. A photo. The necklace, worn. I tapped it full screen, curled around her neck. A soft glow. The caption, I'm sorry I didn't understand earlier. I closed my eyes, took a steadying breath, and waited a while before replying something like, Thank you. That evening, I sat on the porch with my tea. The front gate clicked, and Tobin stepped onto the brick path. No fanfare, just a quiet presence beside me. He sat, hands folded, watching my cup. We shared the same night air until finally he said, I let fear make me cruel. That's not the man I want to be. I looked at him, his shoulders still some older, some younger. I answered softly, You didn't make me disappear. I just stopped making noise. He nodded, letting the words land. We didn't need more. No loud apologies. No orchestrated moment. Just two men, father and son, rebuilding what had been frayed. We sat together, sipping tea. Shadows lengthened as dusk settled. Inside me, something shifted, quietly, gently, like a door reopening after years of being closed. Healing doesn't need applause, just witness. He stood at the door before leaving, shoulders squared but voice low. There's one more thing I need you to see. It's in the mailbox. I didn't say a word. I watched him go. Then I walked down the hall, took the envelope off the table, and stepped into the porch light. Before tomorrow, something else waits for me. The envelope was resting alone in the mailbox, almost blending into the shadows cast by the midday sun. My name wasn't on it, but I knew it was for me. Inside, folded in deliberate care, was a letter dated 3 weeks before the wedding. Tobin's handwriting. Still unsure. Still mine. Dad, I don't know how to say this except to try. I thought peace came from keeping things smooth, clean, edited. Turns out, I made it silent. I signed things I didn't read. I nodded when I should have asked. I wanted you there, but I was afraid you'd remind me of what I hadn't become. I paused. My thumb brushed against the edge of the page. Tucked behind it was an older document, my will. The version before everything blurred. My notes lined the margins like whispered reminders. Arrows pointing to memories. A circle around the house, underlined, to be discussed with Tobin, not decided alone. A sticky note clung to it, scrawled in his newer pen. I don't deserve to ask, but I want to understand. Can we start with this? It wasn't an apology. It was heavier. It was the start of recognition. I sat down at my kitchen table, the only place left that hadn't turned its back on me, and let the note settle beside my tea. Later that afternoon, I drove down to see Miriam, my attorney for over 2 decades. Her office hadn't changed, still smelled faintly of lemon oil and paper. I'd like to update my will, I told her. She gave a knowing nod. Not to punish, I imagine. No, I said. To protect what matters. I left the house to a preservation group to be used as a quiet retreat for fathers estranged, forgotten, but still standing, the journals, nearly 40 years of inked entries, I assigned to the Asheville Public Library, under the label History in Silence, A Father's Perspective. The necklace I left for Marla. Should she choose to wear it again, I added one line, for the woman who wears memory with meaning. Back home, I brewed 2 cups of tea, though only one would be drunk. I placed the sealed will in the drawer once meant for gifts, labeled it in small, steady writing, not for inheritance, for understanding. Days passed, morning light softened. One afternoon, a courier brought a package, simple brown paper, no return address. Inside was a framed print of the photo I once thought erased forever. Tobin at 5, seated on my shoulders, grinning with a gap-toothed pride. Underneath, the caption read, "He didn't raise me loudly. He just never left." I hung it by the front door, not as a statement, but as a quiet correction. For whoever walked in next, they'd know this was a house built by presence. Maybe I was never meant to raise a glass and give a toast, but I left something deeper. Silence with weight, and memory that outlives applause.